Welcome to Soul Steps with Dr. Wrenn. I'm your heart-to-heart walking companion. These short, soulful reflections come straight from my morning devotion walks. Think of it as a chat with your bestie that feeds your mind and spirit. Walk with me or just listen and get ready to feel uplifted, informed, and inspired. Good morning, friends. Happy Saturday. Everybody's working for the weekend. Are we? I don't know. Weekends are great. I like actually Fridays. Fridays are my favorite, mostly because I have them off. My personal Sabbath day, always so great. And yesterday was no different. I knew I was going to have a full day, so I scheduled a float. And if you're new to talking to me, then I'll tell you. A float is a sensory deprived experience where you are in a enclosed space, whether that's a pod or they have open float rooms, which are kind of like a very, very, very large tub filled with water and a huge amount of salt. So much so that it's like the Dead Sea, where you will be buoyant. I think it's even more concentrated than the actual sea, than seawater. But, so you go in, you take a shower, you put some earplugs in, you put some Vaseline over all your open scratches and things, and then you just lay down in the water. And they turn the lights off and they turn the music off, and you just float. Average standard time is usually for 60 minutes. And where I float in Decatur, it's a place called Float Atlanta, and Lois and her husband run it. And she always would say, like, you've got to float like 3 times at first. The first time is like new, scary, you're anxious. It's not a good evaluation of whether you're gonna like floating. Second time is a little bit better, but by that third time, your body remembers and your mind is free to let go, and it's so great. I was talking to her husband yesterday about how it's really hard to explain floating without sounding completely insane, because it's such a uniquely specific experience. I think if you are a introvert, or if you are easily overstimulated, like if you have misophonia, or probably I would imagine people that have emotion regulation issues, or overwhelmed parents, or people stressed out by life. I mean, I really think that everybody can benefit from floating, but it has become a central foundation to my sanity and my self-care practices. So, since I'm sharing all the things I do with you, it's important to share that one too. I used to have a weekly membership, and I fell off all of my self-care last year, and so I canceled the membership. But now that I'm back floating, I started out with just like 2 times a month, but it already feels like not enough time, so I might have to go back to weekly. We'll see. Sometimes it can be hard to block out, schedule wise, but so I had a float yesterday afternoon, and it really helped me out because yesterday morning I woke up really sore and in pain, and I felt physically better And then I felt like mentally super relaxed, emotionally very calm. And it was like I was receiving visitors. My sister and brother-in-law came in the morning, and then my two of my brothers came in the afternoon. My brother's girlfriend, her son, and so, and then I had my kids. So what was that? Probably about like 12 people were over my house, and during all that time, my mom was like, "When are you coming over? And how are you gonna do my makeup tomorrow? And do you have brown eyeliner?" Like, she's starting to micromanage me because she's excited about her party today, but also a little anxious. So I'm fielding calls intermittently from my mom. I still have some, I had a meeting. When I say meeting, I don't know. I need a different word for like a meeting that you want to have. That's like, I don't know. I really shouldn't call it. It was a meeting, but I connected with a friend. Really, that's why I scheduled it on a Friday. Like, if I'm quote unquote meeting with you on a Friday, it's because you're super special. So I don't have like work meetings on Friday unless it's extremely important, like super, super rare. Mostly I will say, no, not Friday. It can wait till Monday, or let's go ahead and do it on Thursday. Because you gotta honor the Sabbath and keep it holy. And what does holy mean? It means set apart. So that's what that means. I do have like 2 different words for you today. So I'm kind of like just letting my spirit come through, and where do I want to go? I'll just share the little parenting nugget, because with the day I had yesterday, not only all these guests, but then like I hadn't had every single thing planned out, but I realized, okay, I've got to like cook dinner. I planned to make spaghetti on Saturday, but I was like, oh, I forgot people are going to want to eat I forgot that people eat more often than I do. Normal people eat more than like a few times a day. And so I'm like, I gotta have like food. So I decided to cook the spaghetti yesterday. And it was like, I had to go to the rental. I had to pick up stuff for the rental. I had to set up the space and everything. So I was like kind of running up against time in the evening. But made the spaghetti, and it was really good. So then I'm like cooking for 12, then I'm like cleaning up, and it's not because there weren't people that were willing to help. To be clear, receiving help when you are cooking for a large amount of people is let's just say I have a system. And if you don't know the system, it's more work for me to try to explain the system to you than for me to do it myself. So I have these dishes that my childhood friend and her husband have a business called Z Pots, and they make these beautiful pottery, and it's pretty much I think I might own nearly every type of thing they make. I started to acquire this collection, so I've acquired it over time and made that investment so that I could be inspired and filled with joy every time I fill my plate or fill a cup. So I have different size plates, and they have small little square plates. We have like medium size rectangle plates. We have medium large size square plates, and then we have large round plates. That's like the basis of our plates. And the large round plates, they're heavy, so you can't like fit a lot of them in the dishwasher, in our dishwasher. And so usually when we have large gatherings or big family meals with ourselves, we'll do the large round plates, but I just like to hand wash them. So quick to hand wash, easy to dry. And so, so I was like doing my whole system. Also clean out all the pots and pans. Like, I probably could have asked someone to do it, but I just wanted to have everything done so that I could go and check on my mom, come back, fellowship a little bit with family, and go to sleep. Not have to worry about it. So I did. It was a lot of work. So I was like, full day, go to visit my mom, touch up her nails, check on her medical, because she's got some medical things that aren't being managed well. So I had to get on that. And by this time, it's late, past my bedtime, and I'm getting ready to come home, and my son starts texting me about his basketball games on today, Saturday. Now, I already knew, so he's on the varsity basketball team for his high school, but he also plays JV because he's a sophomore. And so it's like great because you get like playing time, but then you get to like roll with the big dogs. So, but I already knew that this weekend was going to be really tight. I've got my youngest son first day training with basketball trainer, which I'm so excited about. And then I have, the huge birthday party for my queen mother. And then my 15-year-old son has the varsity game. That's an away game at 8 o'clock at night. I knew there was a JV game, but I was like, no, he can't play in that because that's before the party. Well, he starts texting me nonsense about, I'm like, what time do you need to be at the school? He's like, 8. I already know that's not true because the game starts at 8. I'm trying to get clarification over text. It's not working out well. Then he's talking about JV in the morning, a 10 o'clock game. No, you can't go to the 10 o'clock game. That's not enough time, And then he's asking me about what he's wearing, what's the dress. I'm like, oh my gosh. He's really starting to get under my skin. I'm getting agitated. And I'm trying to tell him why he can't play in the JV game. He's not hearing me. So we go back and forth. I'm like, let me call you in a minute. So I called him. He's basically trying to make a case for how he thinks he can make this game and get there on time. And I'm like, you know what? I'll talk with you when I get home. So then I text my husband. I vent over text your son, this son that you gave me, like I did a whole Adam on him. You know how Adam did Eve when they did wrong? Look. Y'all know that van? This is a scary van. But you know how Adam did Eve when he was like, they ate from the forbidden fruit, and God was like, what's going on? And he was like, this woman that you gave me. So, there are children, but I was like, your son, this son that you gave me is trying my patience. And I asked for help. I was like, here, tap out. I'm tapping out. You're gonna have to take over. Will you talk to him? So he said, yeah. And then I go about my, evening. I go and I get home, and I'm, still hosting. So I'm still making sure everybody has towels and washcloths in the morning, making sure everything is set, making sure everybody knows where they're sleeping. So I have 4, house guests. My oldest son came back from college, so he's sleeping too. And so then my 15-year-old comes down, and he's starting to negotiate with me. I'm like, didn't you talk to your father? He's supposed to help. And he says, well, Dad said for me to talk to you. So I guess he came up with the solution that somehow he convinced his friend to drive him to the game, to drive him back home, and to drive him to the party. Now, I will say that my son obviously must really want to play this JV game, because he has made sure that he has taken away every excuse that I had listed as to why he couldn't do it. So, because I had created that separation between myself and the situation, and I did not tell myself that I had to solve this problem, I was not like, it's not for me, I was able to have some perspective. And you know what? It wasn't a bad plan. It still may not work out. I still may just be disappointed. But it could work out. So I said, okay, And the parenting tip for that is like, in the past, sorry, there's so many cars and it's very loud today. In the past, I would have just said no. And I would have just put my foot down because I'm like, I shouldn't have to be dealing with this. All the stuff I have going on, I've been planning this for months. The day is here, and now my kids know, if you plan something, if you try to do something last minute around the time that I have something planned, the answer is no. The default is no. So you say, can I go to, Aaron's house today? No, we did not plan in advance. I already have plans for today. No. Most of the time it's no. So, but what would have been the impact to my son had I said no? Like, he would have been really disappointed. He would have had to, had an uncomfortable conversation with the JV coach who he's trying to have a good relationship with, because it's already the case that he doesn't practice with JV, that he's like kind of jumping in. So, it would have been hard for him. It may have even risen to the level of personal tragedy. The things that we think are insignificant to our kids are often very significant to them. So we often will minimize things that our kids are dealing with or going through. Somebody at their school said something. There's some social event that they weren't invited to. And they're all devastated. And they have this personal tragedy. Or, even like my 5-year-old, like somebody said a bad word. He may want to talk to me about his friend that said the bad word. I feel like, what am I going to do about it? This seems so insignificant, but he's coming to me. He's coming to me for some reason. He's sharing this. Oh, sorry. It's 16 and a half minutes. I missed my little timeline to tell you. If you're a 15-minute hangout person, congratulations. You are definitely done. So with whatever you were doing, stretching, walking, lifting weights, you're done. But you can go ahead and hang out with me for a little bit longer. And, so if your child brings something to you, even if it seems insignificant, you should treat that as sacred. Maybe that's my word for the day. No, I am still going to talk to you about suffering, but that's an important word for today. Treat what your child brings you as sacred. When they trust you enough to share something on their mind and something on their heart, treat it as sacred. And even if it's hard, which it was very hard for me to treat my son's desire to play JV game as sacred, especially because I felt like he was just finally locking in. I had been talking about this party for a long time. He obviously did not lock in to even ask any questions before about what am I wearing, what are we doing, what's the plan. But now he's locked in the day before the event, less than 24 hours before the event. But he's also trying to incorporate his desires in his plan. You can treat something as sacred even if it seems, profane, because it's sacred to them. So I think if somebody holds something sacred, even if it's something that you don't agree with, you're ultimately going to say no to, you can still have a posture of care and tenderness. How many times as a child did you have to comfort yourself alone? Did you have that experience? Do you remember a time where you were feeling upset, sad, disappointed, hurt, and you were crying by yourself? Think about that and what that felt like. And wouldn't you have wanted some comfort during that time, even if you couldn't get what you wanted? So I think about that with my kids. I'm working on it. It's definitely not easy. It's very hard. So, okay. Well, I really did want to talk to you about suffering, so I'm going to go ahead and do that in the last few minutes of our time together today. Because my scripture reading's good. Catechism is going so great, but it's really the Center for Action and Contemplations week, I guess, because their newsletters are really, really hitting it. in terms of like something that I read. I'm like, I have got to share this. So there was a line in the newsletter today that said something to the effect of like, I am not the first or the last to experience this suffering. I can be a weak but willing member of, I'm going to say, community. And so, talk about the personal tragedies of a child that someone else may judge as not a tragedy at all. This is the nature of like trauma. Used to be that to even diagnose PTSD, you had to have like an index trauma, we would say, like something that rose to the threshold of what we would consider A criteria was our shorthand. And that's what people focus on. Like, is something, big enough that it can count as a big T trauma? But the reality is, there's subjectivity of experience. And that's the interesting thing, is that what can be extremely traumatic for one person is like a blip in the radar for another person, and vice versa. That we're really different in our vulnerabilities and our experiences. But we are all familiar with suffering. I don't know anybody personally who has not experienced suffering. And yet, when we suffer, the worst kind of suffering is the kind that you feel alone in, or that you're the only person that has experienced that suffering. And I've said things about this a lot, especially in the context of my Christian faith, which has offered me, in the person of Christ, a God who is not unfamiliar with suffering. And I think about the sorrow that God feels when it comes to loving a created being that has rejected you. The Lord is not unfamiliar with loneliness. God himself has had the experience of creating something and watching it turn their back on you. So if you've been betrayed, you can serve a God that understands what betrayal is like. If you have been disrespected, if you have been abused, if you have been beaten, if you have been imprisoned, like, you serve a God who is not unfamiliar with those kinds of suffering, the big and small ways. If you have been rejected by your family, the Bible says a prophet is not welcome in his own home. You think people that grew up with Jesus were probably like murmuring, like, this is Jesus from Nazareth? He's supposed to be the Messiah? Boy, I remember when that kid couldn't even walk. I used to babysit that kid. Who is Jesus? I'm like, why are people following him? So if you've been rejected by people, you can serve a God that is not unfamiliar with that. So that's one of the things I really love about my Christian faith, is it's kind of an antidote to loneliness. And when I go through difficult things, I think about Christ's suffering. I actually think about the passion of Christ's suffering on the cross, leading not just the crucifixion itself, which was terrible, but everything leading up to that, being betrayed by one of his disciples that he had poured his heart and mind into, being, rejected by people that chose a thief over him when he could have been set free. Can you imagine being so close to being set free? And even the person who's like imprisoning you, oh my God, I keep thinking about Debo. Like, even the person who's responsible for imprisoning you was like, hey, I'm gonna give you Jesus or you can have Barabbas. He tried to set that up, like, to get Jesus a way out. And they're like, give us Barabbas. What do we do with Jesus? Crucify him. So I'm thinking about Debo and the jury foreman, who's kind of like Pontius Pilate in this story. And I don't know, I hope it's a different outcome for Debo's sake. But, I'm continuing to pray for them. But, so Jesus went through that. He went through having to carry his own cross. Can you imagine having to be like proximately responsible for your own demise? It's like people that have to train their replacements at work. If that's you, Jesus had to go through that. He was mocked. You know, the things that we hold up as like these pillars of our faith now were so humiliating. You know, put this like robe on him, put this crown of thorns with 6-inch thorns. These weren't like little cute little thorns. You know, driven them into his forehead and, you know, whipped him with the cat o' nine tails. This is terrible torture, but it's a mockery. Just so humiliating that he had to go through all the while, you know, being like, these people, they have no idea what's going on. I'm trusting God that this is part of a bigger plan. And, you know, then carrying his own cross up the Via Dolorosa, the way of suffering, and being so weak that someone had to step in and, you know, help him out. And then being on that cross, being nailed to that cross, and just having no comfort. You know, you wish you just want to die at that point. You know, like, come on and just kill me already. But yet, you know, they come over and they give you this bitter drink. Well, I don't even know what the purpose of that. I forgot what was inside of, you know, one of the Roman soldiers dipped some type of in some type of liquid. Maybe it was vinegar. I don't think it was refreshing. Let's just put it that way. And then no comfort, trying to push up on your legs or on your arms. It's just, even just standing in that position without any cross or any nails is not comfortable. How long can you stand in the shape of a cross? Just with nothing, no weights. Just try that, like standing on the ground, and see how long does it take for you to become extremely uncomfortable. But Jesus went through all that, and then, you know, got stabbed in his spleen. Blood and water came down, so that maybe went through his spleen and his bladder. You know, just like, and then finally, you know, he cries out like, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? That's how I know that why is a prayer. Even Jesus prayed that prayer. Okay, so if you are questioning God and you've been told that you can't question God, that's a lie. Because even Jesus himself cried out, why have you forsaken me, God? Have you ever felt forsaken by God? This is personally something that I have not experienced, as I've mentioned. But I have definitely questioned God, like, am I really your child? Like, I thought we were cool. Why am I going through this? I've definitely questioned why things were happening. Why am I not healed? Why, you know, did my friend have to die? And, you know, when people try to be all pious and holier than you and say you can't question God, just quote God back to them. Oh, really? So what do you think about when Jesus was on the cross and said, my God, why have you forsaken me? How about that? So he went through all that, and then he said, it's finished. It's done. And that was it. We know that's not the end of the story. We know what happened at the end. There was victory, but I need to settle on the suffering, you know, because if you really need to meditate on that when you're going through suffering, because it will give you a comfort in that you are not alone. And that is the most comforting aspect when you are suffering, to know that you are experiencing that in some type of fellowship or community. On the contrary, when you are going through a personal, I'm going to use this word, and I know a lot of people react, but I have once heard this phrase, a personal Holocaust. And it's not to minimize the horror and tragedy of the Holocaust, but I do think it's powerful in conveying what is a real experience for people, that it can feel that way. And when you're going through that alone, it's unbearable, and it leads many people to give up, to lose the will to live, to lose the desire to even try. But if you can experience the kindness and compassion of even just someone bearing witness to your suffering, that's what the Shoah is. it's a bearing witness. The never forget is not just so nothing would happen again, but it's also a way to make meaning out of suffering, that someone is bearing witness to my suffering. I'm not suffering alone or in silence with no one to know. So I do think that there's a holiness to suffering. There's a special anointing on those people in their suffering state, that the Lord will give special grace in the context of suffering. So, we've been together for 30 minutes, and my friend was telling me about this technology that'll take out all my pauses and ums and all that. I might try it, because I don't know what I would sound like if we took all that out, but I might try it and test it on those people who like to flow in real time with all of my pauses. But thank you for journeying with me today. I really hope that you pray for me today. Thank you for everyone that is praying for me, and thank you for everyone that has donated to the African Textile Museum in honor of my mother. There's going to be a really beautiful permanent legacy established for her, but we need to raise the funds to make it possible. It's going to be really beautiful, and I'm excited about it. But I hope you have a great day today, and of course I want you to remember to move your body with love and intention today, and remember that I love you.